Hi guys, in this video we're going to be taking a look at replacing the LCD screen on a Canon EOS-M mirrorless camera. The EOS-M, as you probably know if you're watching this video, is Canon's first foray into mirrorless interchangeable lens cameras. The original of the M series, there are several versions available now, but the original one is still very popular, can be picked up for really good prices second hand, is very robust and sturdy. And the chances are, if you're actually looking at replacing the LCD screen, it's probably because your screen is cracked or broken or scratched or something similar. In this case, I actually have I have two of these cameras, and I bought this one second hand as a second camera body, and the LCD screen started showing symptoms of being faulty. They were very intermittent at first, so I didn't really notice, but they gradually got worse and worse. And if I switch this on, if I put a battery in and switch this on, I'll show you what I mean. So sometimes it comes on and then fades, sometimes it doesn't work at all. But if I switch on the camera, and you'll see in this case there's nothing at all. Now that screen is actually lit. It's probably going to be nigh on impossible for you to tell from on the camera here, but that is actually backlit, but there's just nothing on there at all. You cannot see anything. It doesn't matter what you press. They try and go into the menu or what have you. Now of course if the screen doesn't work, it's the only source of seeing what you're looking at through the camera. There's no viewfinder on this particular camera, so it's essential that the screen works for it to work. So looking at replacing the screen, what we need to do is, well, first of all, obviously you need a replacement screen, one of which I have here. It's very straightforward, and you'll need some basic tools which I'll get into in just a moment. It's important that you have your lens or the camera body cap on the camera. The reason for this is so that it protects the sensor, which is open, as you can see there. Because it's a live view camera, what happens is the sensor remains open until it's ready to take the picture. The shutter will then close for the picture to take, then it will open and close again to take the photograph, but it remains open for the live view facility to work, because you're not looking through a viewfinder like you would with an SLR. And because of that, there's nothing in there in the way to protect the sensor other than your body cap or your lens, so you need to keep this on while you dismantle the camera. You will need to remove it temporarily to take the front plate off, but it needs to go back on straight after that. So the first thing you need to do, as with anything electrical, is pop open the battery compartment, remove the battery, and if one's inserted, as you would see there, like so, remove the memory card as well, just for safety's sake, and pop those aside. Close the battery door. The next thing we need to do is remove the neck strap if it's attached, or as in this case, I've just got one of them attached with a piece of paracord, which I use as a lanyard. And to do this, you rotate the key on the side, which you can usually do with my thumbnail, there you go, and then slide that up and lift it off, and pop that to the side as well. So, and obviously any sort of additional accessories you've got fastened onto here, because you will need access to all of the screws and what have you. Press the power button, just double check that there's no residual power in there, make sure that everything's clear. And for the dismantling process, you'll need a JIS crosshead screwdriver, very small crosshead screwdriver, and you will also need ideally a thumbnail or something similar, or failing that, a non-metallic thin prying device. Something like a guitar pick would work well if you have one of those, but a thin plastic or wooden prying device for popping out the ribbon cable holders that you'll find on the LCD screen. So we're going to go ahead and start the dismantling procedure. So taking your screwdriver, the first two pieces to remove are the plastic side pieces here and here. On the left hand side, you'll note that there's a hidden screw underneath the little cover for your HDMI and your microphone jack socket. So go ahead and remove these screws. Now this particular screw, which is the top one on the left hand side where your access panel is slightly longer than the two screws below it, so make sure that you make a note of that and where that goes. I like to lay mine out in the order that I take them out so that I know where they go back, and then you need to just pop that side panel off like so. When you're replacing this panel, make sure also that this retaining hook there actually loops back over there as you push it back into place, otherwise that's likely to come out and you could lose it. Now you have the two side panels removed. There's two screws under here that you need to access on the left hand side. There's none on the right hand side. There are 4 screws underneath around the tripod mounting slot, and there are 2 screws on the hot shoe at the top there. So you need to go ahead and unscrew all of these. Similarly to the access panel screws, the upper one is considerably longer than the lower one, which, hopefully you can see if I place it there. So again, make sure that these are, that you take a note of that so you know what goes back where. Now we've removed all of the screws. There's 4 from the bottom, 2 from the top, 2 from the side that hold the frame on. There are none on this side, as I've said. Both the side pieces are off. This is where you need to remove your lens or your body cap temporarily. So pop that off and just pop it to the side. And then you need to wiggle the front panel loose. Carefully, don't go yanking at that, just wiggle it loose gradually and it should pop off. It may stick a little under the hot shoe just up here. Because it has a little plate where the 2 screws fasten it in. But wiggle that out and then pop it to the side out of the way, and then put your body cap or your lens back onto the camera to protect your sensor. At this point we can remove the rear cover, but this has to be done very, very carefully because you have a ribbon cable which connects these buttons and dials onto the board at the back. So you need to wiggle this loose very, very carefully. And also, I'd forgotten to mention actually, there are 2 points here and here at either side of the hot shoe that you need to lever up with something. These are plastic, so you can actually use your screwdriver, but be careful you don't snap them. These clip down over these points here. You need to wiggle those up and then wriggle the back off gently so that you don't damage the ribbon cable. Once you've lifted it away like so, lift it up and you can see down here the ribbon cable in question. And you'll see this down here is where your ribbon cable connector for the rear buttons fastens onto the board. So you need to use your prying device or a fingernail to flip up that connector just there. Hopefully you could see that. And then wriggle out the ribbon cable. That should come out very easily. If you're pulling at it, something's wrong. It should come out very easily. And then pop that aside along with the front part of the body. And we've now got access to the LCD screen and the LCD screen connectors. In a similar fashion, you need to pop open the 2 connectors for the LCD screen ribbons, but these are slightly different to this one. Rather than just flipping up as this one does, with this particular one you need to hook your finger under the black edge and flip it up that way, whereas this is a brown one and it's at the bottom. This is the black edge and it's at the top. So you need to do that to both of those, flip them both up, so hopefully you can see the difference there. If I can just kind of lever that one forward a little bit so you can see it. Probably see it better on the large one there. Hopefully that's nice and clear. And another useful tool I neglected to mention, which is a cocktail stick. And the reason for this is you have a little hole in these ribbons here, and with a cocktail stick, again non-metallic, you can use that to push the ribbons out and just wiggle them out of the connector, trying not to bend them or tear them because they are fragile, so you do have to be careful of that. At this point now you can remove the LCD screen. You need to lever it up at the top gently and then with a bit of pressure wiggle it from the bottom, because it's got a little tang here which hooks into this bit down here, which hopefully you can see. So you need to wiggle it up until it slides out of there like that. Hopefully I'll just show you that again. So lift it up and you can see it won't go any further than that just at the moment, and then if you push up you can see this little tang down here comes free of there, and then you can lift your LCD screen away. And that's your old LCD screen. Pop that to the side for in preparation for discarding, and we can now go ahead and replace the LCD screen with the new one, which goes in the exact opposite way that it came out. You'll also notice down here you've got a button cell. Should you ever need to replace the button cell for the onboard memory that holds your settings, that's where that's stored, and you can access that by just taking the cover off, popping that out and popping in a new button cell. So we take our new LCD screen. The first thing that I'm going to do is just test this screen by popping in the ribbon cables. I'm going to use the cocktail stick to feed those in carefully, and then we're going to push down the locking connectors. I'm then going to pop in the battery and press the power on button, and there you go. You can see that we now have a working LCD screen. You can flip through the different modes. Fantastic. Let's switch that off. Pop out the battery now that you know that that's working. Handy to check that just before you go ahead and reassemble everything. This is where you have to be very, very careful because you don't want to tear these cables, so you need to try and wriggle your screen into place with the tang underneath there, which is easier said than done. But there we go, a little bit of wiggling and there we go. That's good. As you can see, the touchscreen facility works. The first piece to go back on is the rear, and as before, if you make sure that the little brown portion is hooked up and slide in the ribbon cable. Apologies, this is a little tricky to see while I'm trying to do it on camera. So you may need to get a bit up close and personal with this if you're doing it on your own camera, but it's a bit tricky to see while I'm trying to keep this on the camera for you. But there we go. Slide that in as far as it will go, and using your fingernail or a little appropriate tool, just flick this little brown retaining clamp over, and that should, there we go. Obviously don't tug on that unnecessarily, and what I want to do now is wiggle this, making sure that ribbon cable's not trapped. Wiggle this back into place and you'll hear that snap on with these two pieces that snap onto the front. one quick last battery test before I go ahead and put the front on. Just want to make sure that the buttons work on the back. And that one's not working. I need to go and pop a lens on and just check that to make sure. I think it's probably just because I don't have a lens on, but I want to pop a lens on that and make absolutely certain before I button the camera up. Having tried it with a lens, I got the same problem, and on some close inspection it seems that I've actually torn this ribbon cable that connects the rear buttons. So as I said, you really do have to be careful with this, and I don't know if it's at this fold here, which is clearly a weak point, sort of, because it's, you know, it folds right the way over and folds flat, and I don't know how visible this is on the camera, but let me get a cocktail stick so I'm not poking it with anything metallic, but it's actually split right along this edge here. I don't know if you can see that. Let's try and get it, maybe if I can get it this way around, might be a little bit clearer for you. But that means I've now lost the use of the upward and rightward buttons, unfortunately. However, the good thing about this this camera is it has a touch screen, so it does mean that I've not lost the use of the camera, which is a good thing, but it also means that I'm going to have to try and source a replacement for this now. So the next video that I do will probably be a how to replace this video. So that's very annoying, but we'll go ahead with the reassembly anyway. And the reassembly is essentially a straight reverse of the disassembly, obviously being very careful with this ribbon cable. So I'm just going to go ahead and do that, and I'll speed the whole process up on the camera, but so that you're not sort of sitting through it unnecessarily. But as I say, it's straightforward reversal of the disassembly procedure. There we go, that's the camera reassembled. As you saw there, it's just a straightforward reversal of the disassembly procedure, just replacing the screws where you got them from. Making note, of course, of the screws that are slightly longer than the others, and then replace everything in. And now, as you can see, we have a fully working camera with a fully working LCD screen again. So now I'll be able to use the camera. Obviously there's the damage to that ribbon, but what I've done in the meantime is I've put some clear tape, some sellotape on the ribbon across where the tear is, just to make sure that doesn't tear any further, and I shall have to look for a replacement for that, and then I'll do a video on the replacing of that particular ribbon. I think it probably didn't help when I sort of tugged on that to check that it was actually plugged in. A bit of a silly thing to do, but that's obviously a weak point where that fold is, because it is a very extreme fold. So as I said, do be careful when you unhook that cable. Try not to pull it too straight, and but other than that, you can see it's quite a straightforward procedure. So I hope this was useful, and thank you for watching.